Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Okay. No,
So
that's awesome, man.
where'd you play?
I played at a same thing, kind of like a small D2 out in Massachusetts at Assumption. Um,
Assumption.
so we would play. I mean, in the NE10, like Franklin Pierce is routinely like a top. Well, I don't know what they are now, but when I was there, they were always a top 10, top 15 school. Um, Southern New Hampshire now is like a top 10 D2 school. So we played some really good competition, but the best part about it was a wood bat.
Yeah,
So that
kind of
was it
similar to
was
Cape Cod League.
yeah, exactly. Where you could still one of the things that is you could the really good hitters still mashed. I still saw 400-foot home runs. Um, the difference was, the barrel is this big versus, this big for the metal bats.
Right.
And you didn't get the cheapie. Well, you mean you get wood bat cheapies, but like the real hitters, you could see who knew what they were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a teammate and an opponent. Um, and he was heavily recruited in high school and followed in the draft. Was drafted to pitch by the Rockies. Wanted to play position. He wanted to be a hitter, and
Mhm.
he had a deal in place apparently with the Braves. They that fell through, and the Rockies picked him up. He went and he was in rookie ball, hurt his knee, and they were like, "Well, you stay in Colorado Springs and go through all your rehab and everything." And he was like, "Well, I'd rather be a hitter, and I'm lonely. I want to be with my family." So he like went back to his
Mhm.
hometown, and so they were like, "All right, contract cut." And
Oh yeah.
I mean, he had a mid 90s fastball, and he hit some gargantuan home runs, especially when we played with metal bats. Like
Yeah.
this is still BB core. It was like right after the whole like the
Oh,
Z
okay.
core era.
Yeah, I was
So-
I was there when we had the Besser bats, which were
yeah,
just unbelievably juiced.
yeah. This is right at the like early 2000s. So like right at the
Oh,
end of that.
yeah.
Um, I actually do have some old like vintage Z core, the
Mhm.
SC 500 bats, like
Oh,
drop
nice.
fives and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just like because I went and bought them on eBay just
Mhm.
because they're fun, just fun to hit with, but we couldn't use them in games.
I have one of the old the black and yellow EXO like right next to me. It's
Wow.
the thing is it is. I could go out still and just they're so juiced.
It's like hitting a Super Ball.
Yeah.
I and they're so thin. Like I broke one just like playing with lob pitching. Just like
Yeah.
hit a ball so hard it just totally cracked that aluminum. It was so thin. I grew up on the West Coast. Grew up in Northern California.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
the first my sophomore year of high school is when we really started putting fall ball together.
Mhm.
And then I played in Alaska as an adult, and our season started in May with snow on the ground.
Mm.
What was it like playing Northeast ball? Because it's a whole different animal.
Oh yeah, it's I mean I talk a lot about it with other coaches and players and things like that. It's you I mean even in college, but like we'd go down to spring training mid-March or so, whatever it was. And I still distinctly remember, going down to Florida for 2 weeks, coming back up north to Worcester, and then the first day back for practice was breaking up all of the ice and shoveling the snow off the field. And during coming back for like the spring semester, just bundled up on the turf or something for the football field and like hitting ground balls in 30-degree weather. And it's so different. We only have a couple of really good months to play, and so much of it is just inside training.
Yeah,
um yeah, we're behind the eight ball up here where we're at, but
but there's still some players that come out of there.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I love baseball so much. So I told you.
Which I'll rant about the Red Sox if you want me to.
Oh, okay. So 2007, My dad and my brother and I go out to Boston because the Giants are playing,
Yep.
and Barry Bonds hit a home run at Fenway on Father's Day.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I kind of adopted the Red Sox as my other team in
Hmm.
1986. The Roger Clemens, Spike Owen, Marty Barrett, Calvin Schiraldi, that team. I
Hmm.
made a bet with my next door neighbor on the Mets Red Sox World Series, and that was the first time they broke my heart,
Yeah.
and I couldn't get away after that. So it's always been Giants first, Red Sox second.
Yep.
Um, so actually going to Fenway, kissing the bricks, we did a tour and got to go inside the
Oh,
monster, and I graffitied in there. So
that's
like
cool.
that's in there. Hit Summer Shack, hit the sports bar at the bottom of Fenway at like, to us it was 5 in the morning. The Giants radio station was broadcasting live
Yeah.
at 8 a.m. Boston time, but and we had just gotten off the plane the night before. So we're sitting there drinking like yards of Guinness and car bombs at our 5 in the morning, like
Yeah.
at Fenway. It was
Welcome to
incredible.
Boston.
Yeah, and then we went to all three games that series. Bonds hit the home run on Father's Day, but the Saturday I was trying to get into my seats in the bleacher section in right field, or the right field seats anyway.
Hmm.
Those were built in 1912. They
Yeah,
weren't
they're
built
terrible.
for me.
Yeah.
So some people were, I was sitting like trying to get space and man spread, and I had some people were coming and they wanted their seats. So I was stepping down and the concrete is like kind of
Hmm.
tilted. So I was off balance. My backpack kind of threw me off a little bit, and I popped something in my knee. So I was like, "Oh shit, this isn't good." So I like kind of hobbled outside of Fenway, caught a cab back to the hotel, and watched that Saturday game on TV. And then couldn't sit down because I couldn't bend my knee. Um, so I watched like under the awning on the first base side for the that
Yeah.
Sunday game. Come back to California. The following Saturday, we're playing, and I felt the rest of it go and totally like tore my quadriceps tendon, like totally ruptured it, and had to have
Shit.
like a Tommy John on my knee, like complete reconstruction. And it was uh it was
Yeah.
bad. It was Fenway's fault, but
Yeah.
I
I love Fenway just
yeah.
because, but there's a lot. I mean, it's old, and yeah, there's some of the seats. The right, I've sat out in the bleachers out there, and they're rough.
It
And
was nice
then
because of the bullpen being right there,
yeah,
and the Giants were on our side of it, the
oh, that's cool.
facing the field, the left hand side. So, and they're right there. You're right on top of them, so you can chat with them and stuff like that.
Yeah, that
But
was. I went to a game. It was a few years ago, but it was I forget what year it was, but it was towards the end of the season, and it was one of their like sandwiched really shitty seasons in between like World Series, so like tickets were cheap.
yeah,
So towards the ninth inning, we made our way down, me and my buddy, to like Pesky Pole. But those seats right there, you're facing this way, but the field is over there.
right,
So you're watching like this, but
yeah.
you're sitting this way. There's just so many quirks.
That I mean, there was a it was a Huntington grounds, Huntington something was where the Red Sox played before, and
Yeah,
then they built Fenway. And for context for everybody, Fenway was built at the same time as the Titanic.
yeah, yeah. They were like a week apart or whatever.
So that it's we're going back. We're going old school with that, and I love that it's still around. Like as I was growing up, I had to watch Tiger Stadium go down without ever getting a chance to go out there. The old
Mm,
Yankee Stadium, get demolished without getting a chance. I made it to Wrigley a couple years ago. My buddy and I went out to Notre Dame to watch the Cal Bears play.
yep.
So we hit Wrigley. So I got that out of the way, and I'd already been to Fenway. But some of those classic stadiums, it's just like for any field, regardless of how new it is, as you walk out of the tunnel and you see like the green open up and
Yeah.
whatever skyline scene there is or whatever, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But the older stadiums, when you're in there, it just seems like a time warp. And
Hmm.
That's like totally special about Fenway. I'm jealous of anybody who gets to like go there on a regular basis, but
Well, it's I honestly I don't go nearly as much as a. I mean, I've been a diehard baseball person my whole life, but Fenway is just so expensive now. It's insane.
they all are. I live
Yeah.
70 miles from San Francisco, and my dad is a season ticket holder, and I've had my chance to go to plenty of games, and I haven't gone to a live game in San Francisco in about 3 years,
Hmm.
um, four 4 years now, because 5 years now, because 2019 I think was the last year that I went, and then COVID hit,
Yep.
and then it's such a hassle to get down there. The traffic is insane,
Yep.
and then I have the River Cats, who are the AAA team, that are a
Hmm.
15-minute drive from my house. So
That's nice.
I can go see the baby giants
Yeah.
and the guys on finishing up rehab stints and stuff like that. So
Yep.
I do that more. I don't really go to San Francisco
I don't blame. I
very
would do
often,
that if I lived 15 minutes from that. I would do that for
like from
sure.
Pawtucket. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
the
now
other
they're in Worcester.
oh, okay, you're in Worcester.
Well, I live. I actually. I'm Plainville, but I'm right next to Foxborough. I'm like 10 minutes, not even from Gillette.
Okay, and
But
I was going to get into that because I noticed your sweater, and
yeah.
um, and I told you in our Twitter conversation that no hard hitting analysis or anything like that. This is just
Yeah.
basically a conversation.
Yeah.
But I got to get your take on what's going on in New England. Gerard
Yeah.
Mayo, how do you feel about Bill leaving, the Billy Goat? Uh, Quarterback situation, like where are you at with the Patriots right now?
Yeah. I mean, I all season I was very much like th- so many people were calling for Bill to get fired during the season, which was pure insanity to me. Most of it honestly was sparked by Boston sports radio, which kills me. I don't know what sports radio is like for you guys out there, but
It's not like it is on the East Coast. You have your vocal haters and stuff like that,
yeah.
and there's a little bit of groundswell with the Giants. I think that firing Gabe Kapler had a little bit to do with kind of the narrative and
Mhm.
like the media that was out there, because I mean he had the best 4 year record. He had a better 4 year record with the Giants than Bochy did, and
That's
everybody was like, "Oh,
that's crazy.
they ran Bochy out of town, and Kepler's still there." And it's like, dude, Kepler is an incredible manager, and the
Yeah.
system is good. You just have to kind of like allow it to
Mhm.
play out. It's a different animal though, because Bill has been doing it for so
Yeah.
long that it
Yeah,
might
and
be.
that's well, I'll just say, yeah, the radio thing is the Boston sports radio is it sucks because for as many diehard people are out here, like the sports radio is terrible. But with all of the smoke, especially towards the end of the season, like I had a feeling that it was possible, likely. I didn't want to believe it, but when the news broke, I was sad. Obviously, I mean I'm 32, right? So 2001 they win. I was 10 years old. So that's like my frankly my first real memory.
They didn't win technically. They were kind of, it was handed to them. Um,
Listen, hey, greatest show on turf. Greatest show on turf.
uh, it was a fumble. Okay.
It was, but it was the correct rule at the time. That's all I'll say. And it was very correctly fixed as soon as the season ended.
Heartbreaking. I like right in that little time period I had in. So the Raiders lose the Tuck Rule
Yep.
game. The Kings get blasted out of the NBA playoffs because, I mean, among other things, Robert Ory is a
Mhm.
sharpshooter, but Mike Bibby takes a forearm to the face from
Yep.
Kobe Bryant, and they call a foul on Bibby for getting like a forearm shiver. And then the Giants lose in 2003 to the Angels in the Worlds. It was just like
That's a
we were
tough.
all
Yeah.
so close
Yep.
everywhere, and then
Yeah,
it just
that
all went to
sucks.
crap. Then we go to the Super Bowl and we play against Gruden, and they just absolutely like wiped us. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Oh
back to the
yeah, but
Patriots.
yeah, I get it. I know why they did. I mean, I do think for everyone, no matter what, there is eventually time kind of catches up, and it's time to move on. It's time. It is what it is. I did really want Vrabel purely because he is a proven. very good head coach. I think
Right.
he's a very good head coach, at least. Um, but I knew from even last year when they restructured Mayo that that was kind of the plan in place, and the fact that it was legitimately written into his contract to be the succession plan. I was like, okay, that's fine. And then all of the current players coming out saying how excited they are and how happy they are. Like Josh Uche had a quote. He's like, I will run through a brick wall for Gerard
Hmm.
Mayo. All of his former teammates, all these ex players, like they're all so pumped and excited because they think Mayo is going to be a stud. I'm willing to give it a whirl. I'm happy with
Yeah,
it. The fact that the team was all very happy with the decision, I think means a lot because I think if they went outside, even to Vrabel, I don't know if the team would have been super excited because it seems like Mayo is their guy, kind of like Pierce and the Raiders.
absolutely. And
Um,
Bob Kraft, like he talked up Jared Mayo
mhm.
before this year. Like so, like it was kind of like he was going to be the heir apparent
Yeah,
regardless.
yeah, it was. So, I mean, if Vrabel didn't get fired, I don't think it would have even. I think people would have been a little bit more on board right away with it. But right now, I mean, there's still a ton of question marks at does he keep Bill O'Brien as OC? What is happening at defensive coordinator? Because him and Steve Mayo and Steve Belichick were kind of co-coordinators. Um, they just came out and said that they're probably not going to hire a GM before the draft.
Right.
So I want to stay positive with them because I'm so negative on the Red Sox right now. Um,
Well, at least you don't have Heim Bloom to kick around anymore.
you know, I've softened a lot on Heim because it's very clear that it's not him or Breslow, it's ownership.
Yeah.
And I always felt it was a bit of ownership, but I also thought like Bloom was in there telling them like, no, I can do this. It feels like it's entirely ownership now.
Time machine, go back 2 years, 2.5 years. Alternate universe, alternate reality. The Raiders retain Rich Bisaccia, and Josh McD doesn't
Mhm.
go anywhere. Does he take over for Bill this year if he was still in that organization and didn't have the black mark?
I
Um,
think he might.
yeah. So you dodged a bullet there.
Yeah, we did. We did. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it was an even trade. You don't get Josh McDaniels, and we get Jack Jones. So
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Well, honestly, I hope he keeps his if he can keep his head on straight for you guys, that'd be fantastic. I mean, he's a great player, but
Uh huh. And if there's anybody that can hold his head on straight for him, it's Antonio Pierce
though Pierce, right? If I'm not mistaken, Pierce was his like college coach,
and
and
high school.
oh, and Jack Jones still got in trouble throughout all of those
Oh,
years too.
I
So
didn't know
I don't know.
that. I thought he was just a head case in New England.
No, no, that's why I'm pretty sure that's why he even fell a little bit in the draft with some of that stuff.
Oh,
So
I didn't.
I don't know.
He's
I'm
a
hopeful for
baller.
the guy. Like I would love to see him do well because I don't like to actively root against like a bunch of guys and like he
Sure.
seems good, but like also in Vegas. I mean, God bless. Good luck.
You know, there was a lot of apprehension for like putting professional teams in Vegas, and apart from maybe the Henry Ruggs saga
Yeah.
with the Raiders, I mean, there's you don't hear about the Knights, you don't hear
Yeah.
about the Aces, you don't really hear about Raiders getting in trouble or anything,
Yeah.
except of course for Ruggs.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, I don't think that I think it's been shown over the course of the last 5 years that it shouldn't really be a concern more than like Atlanta or
Yeah.
Miami. I mean, there's
Yeah.
some towns out there with like severe nightlife. New York City, like
Mhm.
if guys aren't getting in trouble there, Vegas isn't. I mean, it's a 24-hour town, but like you look at Max Crosby, that dude is so committed. Like
Yeah.
he goes to the facility and then he goes home and sleeps and then he goes back to the facility. And as long as you're comporting yourself that way, you shouldn't
Mhm.
be. They go to Top Golf all the time. Like
Yeah.
that's about it.
No, no, I agree. And so I'm rooting for him. I mean, he made some pretty cool plays for you guys, so hopefully it continues to work out.
Yeah, and likely created the scenario in which Pierce keeps his job because
Yeah.
those two games that turned on his interceptions,
Mhm.
if Pierce loses those games, then we are. Uh, what was he, 5-4? So now we're 3-6, and
Yeah.
Pierce doesn't stick around. So you are a teacher,
Yeah.
and you teach.
So I'm a high school teacher. I teach psychology and sociology.
Nice. That was my major and minor in
Oh,
college.
awesome.
So total. I I am a social psychologist, I guess you could say. I worked in psychiatry for like my professional career,
Yeah.
working in psychiatric hospitals, but the background, the educational background is all in psychology and sociology, and they go hand in hand.
Hmm.
Like you can't separate them, because psychology totally, like, individuals affect the society, and the society affects the individuals. So
Yeah.
um, that was my big lesson in school, was like, hey, I'm seeing these parallels in both of these different areas of behavioral science, and
Hmm.
they are too big an influence on each other to separate. So,
Yeah.
but when I got into psychology, I had no background in high school. It was all like it was just something that I picked,
Hmm.
because I like the brain is interesting, and kind
Yep.
of ran with it. What's it like teaching high school kids?
It's cool. I mean, that's the story for pretty much all of them as well. So I teach like 95% seniors, which is nice because I can, just have a good relationship with seniors because they're old enough to kind of get it and things like that. And it's not like they have a ton of life experiences, but they've at least been around a little bit more to connect with certain things. But a lot of them, yeah, they take it because they need the elective. They don't know anything about it, but they think that the brain is cool. But really is it's just kind of they've never had a class like it before. So
Right,
it's a lot of it is just what are wait these are the parts of my brain, this is how this works, or like when I go over like sensation perception and like your eyes don't see, it's your occipital lobe, and your ears don't hear, it's just sound waves, and they're like, what is happening,
right.
this is so freaky. Yeah, and then like all the different theories and stuff, I mean, I love it, it's so fun to talk about, like I'm always learning new things, and like I love the psych piece of it, and sociology is cool. Like I just like started that class at my high school, so like I'm still rewriting the curriculum and adding new things and like learning the content and everything better and better because it's only a year old. But that's really cool too because they've had a lot of history classes before, both U.S. and world, but never through like the lens of like societies and cultures and impact like that. So
Right.
they're both of them are just brand new type classes for these kids that they've never had before, and it kind of just ideally opens up their world purview and outlook and even understanding of themselves.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
it's fun.
it, it's kind of a mind blower when you reach somebody young. And this happened a lot when I worked with psychiatric adolescents,
Okay.
and part of part of being a human is manifestation of like your goals as a person,
Hmm.
and self actualization. And my favorite quote of all time is, you are not who you think you are. You are not who they think you are. You are who you think they think you are. And when you get when you get
Well,
young people to kind of understand that, they're
yeah.
just like, "Oh my god." So you're like, you look in the mirror and you see a certain person. That's not reality. Somebody will come along and tell you, "This is what I think of you." That's not reality. What is reality is what you think they're going to say to you, and they're
Hmm.
like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
Or or like, think of your favorite song. You don't really like that. That's just a result of
Hmm.
the sociological pressures around you.
Yeah.
And if you take yourself out of that group and you put yourself in another group, your opinion is totally going to change. And they're like, "What is happening?"
Yeah. Yeah, that's we like just went over development. So we talked about like Erickson's like social development and like your teenage years, like identity versus role confusion. All the kids are like, okay, yeah, I get it. I
Yeah,
don't even know what I
identity
like.
is
Who
a
am I?
trip.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And then the other part of it is when you take somebody who's like 16 or 17, and part of the arrogance of being a teenager,
Hmm.
uh, like it's kind of like a Dunning-Kruger kind of level of, you
Yep.
know, you can't tell me nothing. And then you explain to them, in the course of human development, you're technically not really going to be a formed adult for the next 7 or 8 years. And they're
Yeah.
like, what are you talking about? Yeah, you don't have higher order thinking yet. And they're like, I what? Yeah, you think in the immediate and you don't see logical consequences. And they're like, I what?
Well,
That's why you go jump off bridges and shit. Like,
yeah, yeah. Why do boys do
stop it.
dumb shit? It's like, I joke about it all the
Yeah,
time because most of my classes, just because I think it's psychology and I teach, especially like AP, I end up tending to have like more girls in the class than boys. So I always like, we'll talk to them like, girls, you just gotta have to realize we're sorry, but our brains, we're not 20 now. By the way, research is like closer to 30 for like
yeah. It
males. So
was
I'm like,
25 when I was deep in it, but
yeah, now I think they're like, it might even be a little bit later. So I'm like, if you ever wonder why boys, especially your age, just do dumb shit constantly, it's our brains. It's just kind of how it
yeah, there
works.
one of the things that I would teach is, kind of like life things, um, goal setting,
Hmm.
uh, like how to like go about your daily life kind of thing. And there's a lot of stuff about being adult that I didn't get until I was in my early 30s. So anecdotally that totally tracks for me.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready at all.
No.
Um, all right. So apart from like just the daily enthusiasm that you get from that,
Hmm.
when did you start getting into like fantasy content, looking
Okay.
deeper into the kinds of things that are going on the field, and thinking, hey, this is something that I can do.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been playing fantasy. Like, I think we all probably start pretty young. Like, I remember, like, with my friends, like, when we were in, like, eighth grade, making, like, fantasy football leagues and doing stuff. But, like, you don't know that much when you're that young. Um, then throughout college, like, I was always into fantasy football and doing stuff. But I think I didn't really start making content till about 5 or so years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And it really started with my, like, Twitter account. I was just kind of there to screw around, to post nonsense. Like it wasn't really a focused account in any way. But a lot of it was just like following different fantasy football people. And one of the first like groups of people that I found was these guys, Brodo Fantasy. It's these three brothers out of New York City. Great guys, really awesome. If you don't know them, I think they're worth a follow. Anyone else, I think they're great. Um, and just kind of like started talking with them and like I'd ask them questions and I was like, I think I can do this. Like I'm definitely learning stuff, but at the same time, like I I don't need to pretend that I can't do it. So then I just started doing stuff on my own, getting, with different groups of people, learning, producing content, things like that. So it's been, yeah, probably 5 or 6 years. And it really just started of I loved fantasy football. I was pretty good at it. Um, at all the times that I didn't know why I was good at it. Sometimes it was dumb luck, or sometimes like I had this theory on how to do something, but I didn't really know like the science and math behind it. Now I think I have a better understanding of things like that with draft strategies and such. Um, but yeah, it's kind of started organically. Of hey, I can stop asking people questions, and I know I can just go and start producing content, and I did. And it was also a very different world on Twitter 5 and 6 years ago. You
Right.
had you cut your teeth back then, like hard.
That you are a content creator for the
Mhm.
Undroppables at AWL Sabermetrics, theundroppables.com. So what are you doing at the Undroppables?
Yeah, so right now, I mean, most of my personal content, yeah, like I said, I'm heavy with Scott Fishbowl stuff and trying to get information out for that. And then during the actual NFL season, every Monday night, myself and then Brian, we start at the halftime of the Monday night football game, and we try to keep it to like 30 or so minutes, just a really quick, rapid reaction of what we saw the past, day and a half, essentially, and start to really project it out further. And what does it mean? It's kind of like a JJ Zacharyson pod before his even comes out. and actually, if we could pat myself on the back here for a second, uh, a lot of the times we'll talk about something, and then when his pod comes out like the day or two later, he'll have the same player and the same take, and like Brian and I are in their DMs, just like, oh my god, he thinks like we do. That means we're smart. So like we have a lot
Right.
of stuff
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, a lot of it is okay. You're like, oh, this player just went, 8 for 132. Like that's great. But then it's like, well, a lot of that has to do with maybe more of the matchup and this and that. So we try to just cut straight through all of the fluff. Like I joke with Scott, or sorry, with Jax, just like we're the exact opposite of his podcast. That his goes for like 3 hours. Ours is like straight to the point and try to cut out all the bullshit as much as possible. But
Yeah.
I think we give same really good information right away. Um, During the off season, I'm going to start to honestly, because the Patriots have the number 3 overall pick currently. I'm really going to dive into rookie stuff.
Yeah.
I did do that a couple of years ago for a few seasons of helping put together like the Undroppables draft kit. But the last two, I've just been so busy and hasn't really been on the forefront importance for me. But now it makes a lot of sense for my real team. So I'll probably get back into that. But then really just as a group, Jax is always doing his dynasty pod. We just brought in one of my really good friends, Trav, from True North Fantasy. He's going to help us really put out better video content and things like that. So a lot of it now is just trying to get the entire group pushing forward rookie draft season.
Yeah. And everybody out there, Undroppables is a really, really great source. Really slick website. I just my last guess I was kind of remarking on theirs too. The It's slick. It's very nice looking, and it's you can
Oh,
kind of just stare at it and go, "Oh wow!" before you even start like reading articles or
yeah.
whatever.
Well,
So
I have
everybody
nothing to do with that, but I
go to
do appreciate
Undroppables
it.
for sure. So yeah, Undroppables. Jax Falcone on Twitter. AWL Sabermetrics Dan. AWL Sabermetrics on Twitter. Chalk is at 101
Yeah, at 101 Chalk.
at 101 Chalk. I did a bunch of first ran into Chalk in some Scott Fishbowl mock drafting, a
Mhm.
whole bunch of like mock drafts that we were doing. I did probably 50, maybe 100,
Yeah, yeah.
and
They're
and
addicting.
then and then nothing went the way.
That's also
I
how it
mean,
goes.
it started with I didn't have a live draft that I was in, so the division I picked the 10 because I thought picking on the back end might
Mhm.
like help me out a little bit. And then a San Francisco spot opened and I like jumped on it, and now all of a sudden I had the sixth spot. And so everything with the
Yep.
sixth spot, like I probably did 50 drafts where Joe Burrow at the six, Joe Burrow at the six, Joe Burrow at the six. And then I'm driving to San Francisco to go to the live draft, and I'm listening to like two or three different podcasts on the way that are talking about different like draft strategies and stuff.
Mhm.
And one of them was like, you have to kind of figure out what you want. Do you want to like build a team that's going to go to the playoffs, or do you want to build a team that's based on these values, or do you want to just like go have a good time?
Mhm.
And I was like, I'm taking Lamar.
Oh,
It just like totally changed my mind like 45 minutes before I got in there.
yeah.
And then the number 5 pick in front of me took Joe Burrow anyway. So
Oh,
I'm glad I had come to that conclusion, because I would have panicked like
yeah.
I did in the second round when I panicked smashed TJ Hawkinson because Chubb and Barkley got taken right before.
Mhm.
And so I'm thankful for that one too. That
Yeah,
kind of
I
kind
I
of worked out.
I had got Chubb in the second round, and I was ecstatic. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, week 2, I was not ecstatic.
You survived though. I
I
mean,
did.
you
Kyron
top
Williams
250
was,
finish.
yeah, somewhere in
There
the
you
top
go.
250. Yeah, that was my final 2 picks were um, Kyrene and then Zach Moss. So I targeted late was just like late running backs and
Yeah.
worked.
And everybody that got Kyron late, everybody that got Puka late. I mean,
Oh my god.
one one of the more popular adages in the fantasy world is you can't win a league in the draft, but you can lose it.
Yep.
And with most of the rosters that I had that were like really, really bad losers, they look great. Like
Yeah.
some of them, the Women of Fantasy Football event, I'm
Hmm.
looking at my roster going, how did I lose?
Yep.
Um, I mean, because it's just like stud after stud, but it worked out that way.
Yep.
With the exception of one guy that won, he won the Fantasy Footballers Listener League
Hmm.
with the team he drafted. That's the only example I can think of.
Wow.
Otherwise, the
That's,
best part about fantasy is uncovering that Justin
hmm.
Jefferson week 4 waiver wire pickup, and
Yeah.
the Kyron Williams late in the draft, and grabbing Jerome Ford as soon as like Nick Chubb goes down, things like that. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the best. The grind is the best part.
Yep. Yeah. That's why I think I only do fantasy baseball for like my one home league, but I've come in first, second, and third like the last 3 years, just like bang, 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 and I
Yeah.
think it's because at the end of the season, I far and away lead the league in ad drops because
Transactions. Yeah.
I'm just always like I'm streaming starting pitchers constantly. Like I'm switching guys out. Like I'm just gonna make moves, and eventually the more moves I make, some I get burned, sometimes it works out, and but you just gotta keep going. But yeah, I
We're
love that part of it.
degens. We're degens. That's what it's
Yes.
all about. That's what the fantasy burn means. Is it's uh, waking up at 3 in the morning because waivers went through, and now these guys are available, so you can pick them up. And yeah, that's it's funny because so many of there are so many parallel stories, and I say this, and it's getting dumb. I say this almost every podcast that I record when I have somebody who's a content creator, the parallels of when they started, how they started, what makes them tick, the competitiveness, all of
Mhm.
these through lines that we all share, and make us weird. Like
Yeah.
you can't go to a normal person and tell them, I drafted 25 fantasy teams, and they're like, oh wow, that's a lot. And then you finish your sentence on sleeper.
Yeah.
That's not counting MFL. That's not counting Fantrax. That's not counting ESPN redraft leagues. That's not,
Yeah.
I the bug hit. I was in a basically a baseball GM simulation league,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
everything was done by spreadsheets. And we
Yeah.
had a 25-man roster with a salary cap based on what the budget of your. There were 30 teams in the league. Everybody had a major league team assigned to them. I had the Twins. So if the Twins had a $68 million budget that year, that was my salary
Okay.
cap. Meanwhile, the Yankees had a $175 million budget. That was that guy's salary cap, right? So I'm a small market team trying to make things happen. So there's the 25-man roster, and that's what gets scored every week.
Hmm.
And then you have a 40-man roster. So you have active 40-man roster. And so you're doing like call ups. Guys have 3 options.
Yeah.
And it was a total simulation. We had an amateur draft. We had a free agency period that was all like bids in the
Hmm.
forums, in the chats. And then we had the automatic assignment. We had the guys that went to your organization in the amateur draft that weren't taken in our amateur draft got automatically assigned. So all of the Twins guys and the low minors and stuff got
Hmm.
automatically put on our team. So I had 250 players on my spreadsheet, and I'm supposed to go 25 and do all of the it was
Easy.
insane, and it was so fun.
Yeah.
And that was shortly after that, I stopped playing fantasy baseball.
It's
I
just too much.
can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's too much, and it's also like I don't get the same. I can't just do like a normal
That's true.
fantasy baseball team and like have that itch scratch. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I avoid it completely. And
That I feel like there's also a lot of us in this space, like growing up with like Madden. It wasn't you weren't playing the game as much as you were doing franchise mode and like
yeah,
running the team as the GM. Like it's all about drafting and then contracts and like that. Like I feel like there's a lot of us that if they brought back the right, wasn't that the game? Like they had like Madden Coach or whatever.
yeah,
Like they could bring
that
that
was
back.
fantastic.
I think that would be like massive in our community again
Yeah,
because that's what we
well,
did.
the great parts about it they took out,
Yeah. Well,
and
that's Madden in
they
general too.
they canceled Madden Coach, and then they made, up until I think this last year or so, the
Hmm.
franchise mode and all that stuff. It was just like kind of empty. They took out all the best parts of it.
Yep.
And then one of the things that I like kind of came up with, like, or grew up with, whatever, cut my teeth on Madden with, was taking your NCAA rosters and transferring them
All
over
right. Hmm.
in the first Xbox gen, PS2 kind of era. Like you could like put your roster on a hard drive and transfer it up to your Madden team. So
Hmm.
you could build like from the draft from your players from NCAA, and that's all coming back this year.
That's cool.
So
Yeah.
I don't have time for it anymore. I like once I started doing like fantasy
Yeah.
content, uh, like on a at a higher pace than I
Hmm.
had been, video games are gone. I don't really
Yeah.
play. I don't have time anymore. I'm writing too much. I'm doing player profiler stuff. I'm like recording, and so video
Yeah.
games I just don't. But I remember getting yelled at. It's 4 in the morning. Go to bed.
So I'm working on the draft here, Mom.
Yeah. Well, I gotta get you back to your um, family and everything. It's pretty late on the East Coast.
They're
We
sleeping.
are
That's
going.
okay.
We are going to do your top five power rankings.
Ooh. Okay.
Um, so you have a choice. Um, if you have something that's in mind, like if you have like top five Patriots players of all time kind of thing, we can
Gosh.
go with that. Or I have a random wheel that we can spin and come up with some weird topics like movie villains or restaurants or things like that, music stuff.
Let's go. Let's go
What do you
random. Let's have some fun.
going with the randomizer? All right, that's a popular choice. So there it is on the screen, and so I will spin it. We can see top five bands, pizza toppings, middle names, video game franchises, movies, stand-up comics, movie heroes, movie villains,
Ooh.
things like that. And for Dan, we're going with bands. All
Oh
right.
boy.
So we're gonna get Dan's top five bands. Let's
This
say
is all right. And does it have to be in order or just any top five?
we're gonna go 5 to 1. Like
5 to 1.
you are ranking them.
All right. I got to think of who I got here. This is tough. All right. On the spot. All right.
One of the ways that I try and uh, present it to people is you're stranded on a desert island. You
Mhm.
can have the full catalog of an artist. What five artists would you not be able to live without?
Okay.
Or if I could give you a ticket to go see any live show right now, like who would it be, and then just go from there.
All right. So if I had, so I'll go with the island. I'll go with the island one because I think if it was a concert, this would be a really might be weird. But if I was on island, I would need Tool.
Okay, wait. All right, so your number
Uh,
five is Tool.
oh, ooh, okay. Yeah, yeah. I see what you mean. Okay. I guess I can't start with Tool. All right.
Okay, good.
Five. Be on full catalog. I would probably number five. I would say Lil Wayne. If I can get like
Lil Wayne. Okay,
all of like no see like all of their mixtapes and everything too, I think there's just so much there. There's a lot, so I go there.
Spotify. We'll say Spotify. What's available on Spotify,
Perfect.
kind
I'll
of
take
thing.
that.
If there,
I'm pretty
because
sure
if
it's on
there's
there.
underground like tape sharing and stuff. So Lil Wayne, have you gotten to see him?
No, I've been pretty much all the concerts I've been to have been rock concerts.
Okay.
Um, actually, yeah, rock concerts, and then my very first concert I ever went to, my parents took me was Kenny Wayne Shepherd for the blues.
Yeah,
Um,
he's great.
yeah, it was me, my parents, and a bunch of like bikers, and I was just like apparently like playing with all the bikers, so which I can't imagine like 5-year-old me like, "Duh." But
It's it,
so it was a good time. I
blues
do
is
like the
funny
blues.
because blues is total dad music, and it's almost like you have to have a kid before you really get into blues,
Yeah,
unless you're already a guitar player. And
yeah,
that's one of the things that I noticed was like I always like as I my parents were hippies, so when I was growing up and discovering their music collection, it was all the stuff from the '60s that they had, and so I got into that. And then as I was getting older, they were into like kind of country and blues, and my dad's
Mhm.
like a huge blues guy. I hit about 35, 6, 7, and just hit the blues hard, like total deep dive on like blues
Yeah.
from 1928 all the way back up, and then did the same thing with country, like that roots music. Like it takes a while to
Yeah.
get into stuff like that. You have to have kids first.
Yeah.
So, all right. So
All right.
your
So
first show is Kenny Wayne Shepherd. Your number 5 is Lil Wayne. Who's your number
number five.
4?
My number four would be Tyler Childers.
Okay. Is that a country singer?
Yeah, it's like country Americana type. It is not like mainstream, I guess. It's not
Okay,
like bro country.
good.
Um I really yeah, he's
So,
fantastic. All right. 3, I would say I'm gonna go eclectic here. All right, so I have rap, I have Childers.
okay, I see where you're going.
Do I want peppers? I'm gonna go with Soja, which is like a reggae band.
Okay. Thank you
S
for not
up.
saying Pepper. Are you a Pepper fan?
I mean, I do enjoy Pepper, but
Okay. I had a boss, and Pepper was his favorite band, and
okay.
he was a, a, when I would try and explain the management style or the coaching style of Josh McDaniels, I
Oh
would
no.
use him as an analogy. He was a my way or the highway guy.
Yeah.
Like, so when he was in the store,
Yep.
the music playlist was him. It was
Hmm.
him, and he didn't listen to like anybody. Like if you had a suggestion, no. And the only thing he wanted to play ever was Pepper. So
Oh.
and the only playlist he had was like 5 songs. So there's 5 Pepper songs that I've
Hmm.
heard 1,000 times just because he wouldn't play anything else.
Yep.
Um, and I could have liked Pepper. I'm like I love Sublime. Like I could have
Yep.
like gone that way, but he just completely ruined it for me.
That's yeah, that sucks. Yeah, that's where I like Pepper, but I if I listen to the same just like couple songs, I fully understand where you're coming from.
But you're
Uh,
going Soja. Okay.
all right, so I'll go Soja.
Now
Um,
number 2.
oh man, this is where it gets tough. I will say I'm between Rage or System of a Down.
Okay.
Don't know which one I want. Or I could go Alice in Chains actually too.
That's another good one.
I know.
Um,
I know. I've because Rage and System are pretty similar for me.
Kind of. I mean, System is a little bit less on like the rappy side of it.
Yeah,
They're both very message heavy.
that's what I mean. Like, yeah, like,
One of the greatest. So I saw System of a Down, the Mars Volta, and
oh,
Hella, which is a Sacramento band with like their drummer is one of the greatest drummers that ever lived,
yeah,
and the most incredible pit situation I've ever seen from above
yeah,
was System. There were 5 circles, kind of in like a 5 on a dice like
yeah, yeah,
pattern,
yeah.
and they were just fucking going. It was so cool to watch.
That's
And
sweet.
yeah, System of a
Yeah.
Down is great.
All right.
Okay, so
Yeah, I'll go System.
you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give you all 3.
Wow.
Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
I never saw Alice in Chains, but I did see Lane Staley's younger brother, who is a singer in a band called Second Coming,
Okay.
and he wore knee high, sparkly silver platform boots
Hmm.
and a cape. So that was fun. Um,
Interesting.
I lived in Seattle in 1992, 1993. So like
Okay.
that whole
The whole like
grunge era,
Soundgarden
like I
and
was
Pearl
like
Jam.
smack dab in the middle of it.
That's
I
cool.
got invited to a party at Jerry Cantrell's house, um, right around, it was around summer of 93. And Pearl Jam had just come off the road. Nirvana had just come off the road. And my buddy, whose brother was Andrew Wood from Mother Love Bone, who
Hmm.
Temple of the Dog was a tribute to because he died. So Rip invites me to this party. I was moving back to Northern California and I had to miss it because I had to leave. And and I so
That's
I think in an alternate universe,
yeah.
I would have become a singer from making connections at that party and
Yep.
then be dead of a heroin overdose by now.
Yeah.
So,
But you'd be famous.
and yeah.
Yeah.
So thank goodness for other stuff. And then
Yeah.
I do my producer, hey producer, which is just me. I got a we'll get this going with a snare drum roll. So AWS number one band,
Tool.
Tool.
Gotta go
Fuck
Tool.
yeah, fuck
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Uh, I have a son who's a couple years younger than you are.
Hmm.
Tool is his all time favorite band. My youngest son has like taken that torch. One of the more incredible emotional moments in my life was seeing Tool with my kid there, and I just like I was overcome. I'm sitting there like a grown
Mhm.
man weeping, and I couldn't figure out why. It was like, why is this so like such an emotional event for me? Tool is so good. Okay, so what's your favorite Tool record?
I mean, ladder. Jesus. I think I probably know 10,000 Days the best.
Okay,
Um,
but Schism, I mean,
yeah, I mean, well, listen, that's the thing. I don't know how I can pick. Um, what'd you think of their newest album?
Fear Inoculum, love it. I
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely love it.
yeah.
Yeah, my buddy that I went to see Notre Dame and Cal with, we went to UC Davis, my
Mm,
hometown school, played
okay.
at Cal, and we drank on the train going down there. And Memorial Stadium in Berkeley has like this big like rock wall that's out like kind of surrounds the stadium.
Yeah.
And so it's he and I, and we're sitting there on this. We got beers and ice in our backpacks, and we're chugging beers before the game. 85-degree like sun hitting us, and that album was like a week old,
Okay.
maybe within the first month. So it was 2019, like right around August, beginning of
Mhm.
September, and we're just sitting there, and he's got this portable speaker that we're just like playing that album so loud, and everybody's walking by, and we're like, "Go Ags!" to all the Aggie fans that are walking by, and it it was a great day.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, lots of Tool memories. I It's a God. They're so good.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
Just Ticks and
and
Leeches.
my son's
Fun.
Ticks and Leeches is
Yeah.
great. Like everything that they've done.
Mhm.
The only thing that I'm not really a fan of is like Sober and like
Ah,
that, like
yeah,
Prison
yeah.
Sex, like that era.
Yep.
Their mainstream kind of launch. Not I'm not a huge fan of. I'll listen to that last after I listen to everything
Mhm.
else. But another cool little Tool story. I got a lot of stories. But my son is a musician slash music engineer, and
Mhm.
he was working down in LA, working for a producer, um, and doing stuff for Papa Roach, Dashboard Confessional, that kind of
That's
thing.
cool.
So he gets this invite to a record release party, and it's a band called Legend of the Siegelmen, and it's a side project of guys from Mastodon
Oh,
and
wow.
Danny Carey and Justin Chancellor. So my young boy and our my new dog and I drove down to LA like 6 7 hour. We stayed in this Airbnb, like one bedroom, and then my boy and I went to the bar that night for the record release party and got to meet the guys in the band and stuff like that. It
That's
was
crazy.
absolutely epic. Yeah, it was those brushes with greatness where you're
Yeah.
like you're fucking Justin Chancellor. I don't my brain is not working, like I don't even know how to operate right now.
Yeah,
And
that's wild.
it was cool. It was totally cool.
That's
All
yeah.
right.
That's super cool.
So Tool is number one, and
Yeah.
they're definitely on my top five. It's so funny how many Spotify raps come out, and
Mhm.
Tool is right there with Boston.
Oh.
That the first Boston album is
Yep.
so good. You
Yep.
wait until you're in your 40s
Okay.
and then start listening to it. It's really really good. I can't stop. And anyway, Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the
Thank you.
podcast.
Yeah.
Um, let's work together again at some point.
Yeah.
And
Of course. I love it.
to everybody else, Thank you for watching the Fantasy Burn, and I hope you win.